A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to uLaw's webinar. We are going to be discussing a couple of topics today. Number one, everything practice management, and number two, we're also going to discuss on Law Society bookkeeping compliances. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Gayatri, and I'm from uLaw's Client Success Team. I do host a few webinars to your colleges, also to other colleges, and every Friday at uLaw we have free CPDs. Every alternate Friday we have free CPDs, and every other Friday we discuss some useful topics. If at all you're all out of school practicing or plan to practice, do reach out to us, and you can use the free CPD webinars to learn more. This is in fact one of our CPD topics that kind of forms basics for practice management. So that's why as name suggests, everything practice management. We're going to discuss everything end to end. At any point in time, if you're not able to hear me well, if you want me to repeat something or you have any questions at all, please use the chat window. I might not see it immediately as I'm the only one hosting and also seeing the chats, or taking the chats. I will make sure to take a pause in between to look into it and answer your questions. Anything that is not related to topic, I request you to hold it to the last, and I'll have like a small Q&A where you can post all your questions and we can go through it together. Now, about the topic, everything practice management. This is more of what a legal professional, you are required to fulfill in practice or during your practice. More like a professional obligation to fulfill from the standpoint of Law Society and what you're required to do when you intake a client or when you actually service them or communicate with them, maintain their files, maintain their records, financial management, business management, and rest of the things, which includes professional time and personal. So I would box them into two different categories. I would say client intake, service communication, and file financial management, business management comes under one wing, which is what we're going to focus more on today. Of course, professional management, time management, and personal management, we're going to talk about that a little bit, but my focus is going to be more on the first part of it that I just said over here. And when it comes to professional obligations, so is it really compulsory for you to even adhere to these policies or rules or regulations that you see here? It is better if you do so, because from Law Society's eyes, you are a new entrepreneur or you're a practitioner looking to, maybe establish a practice, and you need to make sure if and when you're being audited, you have all of these records handy with you. So, you don't have to worry about even being, let's say you have a spot audit. You don't have to worry whether you have to gather these information. If you have the habit of maintaining these professional obligations or adhering to these professional obligations from day one of your practice. Now, that is why these topics are taught to you in school, because if at all you decide to start your own practice, you have these things in mind, and you're able to also make a note of what is required and be prepared probably when you start your own practice. Now, as part of the first subcategory, which is client intake, service, and communication, now there are different methods in which you could do a client intake, service, communication, especially the client intake. You could do a paper pen method where someone walks into your office, a prospective client or a potential client, and says that this is their issue, and they may refer to you by their friend, or they came to know about you through advertisement, so online, whatever it is, and they would like to discuss the case with you and take it forward from there. Now, this is the first point of contact that you have with the client, and you want to make the notes, record them, docket them. But before all those, you want to make sure your intake, your client intake is complete. And when I mean complete, you need to make sure that there's a proper intake done with either a prepared method where you hand over a client intake form, ask them to fill it out in front of you in the office, or you send them like a small link, or you ask them to go online and find out, the intake schedule on your online or website, and make sure that all the details are recorded. And also, sometimes you could send them a link over email using a portal. Now, this has become very common, especially post-COVID, where the physical meets in the office or in a workplace environment has reduced, and things have become more of virtual today, where you only send links, you send emails where you want them to enter all the information together. And this is where you have detailed recording of kind of calls and consultations. And you also want to make sure that the second step towards keeping yourself compliant is conflict check. Now, once you have completed the conflict check, you know for a fact that whether this client has any conflict with you or not. If there is any conflict, you are just straight away going to give them a non-engagement letter and say that, maybe you refer them, of course, you're going to refer them to someone if you know, or you politely let them know that why you cannot handle this case, and you give them a non-engagement letter so that in the future they don't hold you responsible for any of the acts, and they don't come back to you saying, oops, I thought you were looking into my file or case, but for some reason they shouldn't hold you responsible. So that is the reason why we provide a non-engagement letter. But let's say a conflict check was positive, and for the potential client, of course, then you go ahead and open a file, which is a matter in uLaw, and you start determining your hourly rates or your flat fee rate, whether you're going to open a trust account, you're going to get the money into the trust account, or you're going to get it into the general account. So if you're going to get it into the general account, are you going to start getting the, invoicing from day one, or you're going to do either interim or final? You're going to decide all of those basically at the stage where you determine the fee and how you're going to deposit the retainers, if you have a trust account or not. And, upon collecting the trust money, you provide them with a receipt. So the documents that you exchange with your client are most important, because that piece of communication has to be in accordance with law society. So that is one of the reasons why we always say make sure that all the documents are handy, and you keep them prepared much earlier, so you don't have to worry about while you're working on a file. That's number one. And as you progress in, when you're intaking a client, there comes into picture the retainer agreement. Now, with the retainer agreement, we all know that it's totally subjective. It depends on each and every one, their style of practice, their area of practice, and quite a lot. So you want to make sure that the nature and scope of matter, client responsibilities, scheduling and course of representation, along with retainer arrangements and risks associated with it, all of them are pointed out on day one. And you also have to make sure that method and frequency of communication is also entered there. Now, the retainer agreement can be pretty simple, at the same time pretty complicated. So make sure that you can get one that is not too vast, at the same time has covered all the points that needs to be communicated to the client. Where nobody has the time to sit and read for hours together. It is just a simple agreement. At the same time, it is also something that needs to be, it holds them strong from both ends. Right? So that is the retainer agreement. Now, that is one of the first document that you exchange with your clients, so you have to be very vigilant in communicating with them, making sure you've noted down all the points. And once the retainer agreement is signed and the retainer has been collected into the trust account, then you begin with the work, which is when you open a file. So you need to start managing the file. So do you have a checklist in place? Make sure you have one. So once you have a checklist in place, you know that these are the documents you need to be collecting from the client. These are the documents you have to be drafting or you have to be preparing. Whether you have any file numbering system in place, all of these can be verified while you have a file management. Now, file checklist shows you all of the necessary documents that you need to collect as well as prepare. So have that handy. And then you can start off with conflict check, have a file number for each of the matters, chronologically secure them, and also record all of the client interactions. That's what is called as docketing. Now, in today's technology, you have many methods in which you can easily docket. Like, for example, if you take uLaw, you have a record option. You can just simply speak into the mic, and it will convert the speech into text. We also have AI-generated tools that will make your life much easier. So it's not just uLaw. There's so many other apps that you can put to use. So make sure that you're having all of them handy while you're doing any of these kind of work, so that this is only your secondary work. Your primary work is obviously legal work, but happen to be so that the practice management plays a major role, because you have to answer back to Law Society, let them know how you're preparing the files, how you're servicing the client, are you within the range, or is there any issues you need, or is there like a red flag there? All of them are probably, kind of identified at this stage, and make sure that your file management has all of the organization through numbering system. Generally, we recommend like an alphanumeric numbering system. That's what Law Society recommends too, and that's what is available in uLaw, that automatically gets generated each time you open a file. So you know that with a positive file management, you can kick in quite a few clients at the same time. You can make sure that you are able to work on all of the files, and you arrive at financial management, managing the finances. Now, you have decided on the fee, you have collected a small retainer, you've issued a receipt, and you've started off with the work. When you start off with the work, this is where you create dockets. Each time you work on something, you create a docket. What does the docket do? It does get into your invoice, right? Once you have opened a file, which is also known as matter, and you have actually added a few dockets and raised an invoice. Upon raising the invoice, first thing you got to do is to send it to your client and let them know whether there's any balance due or not. If there is no balance due, you can just get the money into the trust account and move the money from trust to the general. Let's say, for an instance, you don't have a trust account, right? So not all legal professionals carry a trust account. If only your practice demands, or if only you want to take that, I wouldn't call it as a burden. Having a trust account is more like it has its own plus and minus. It has its own pros and cons. So let's say, for instance, you don't have a trust account, then you're going to directly get the money into the general account upon raising the invoice. So raising an invoice, delivering the invoice to your client is the basic step with financial management. Once you do that, any overpayments, you can identify any underpayments, you can collect it into the general account. And you're able to basically track all your payments and invoices and record them in the general account respectively, and maintain all the bank statements so that you can also complete the reconciliations on the program that you're using. If you're using uLaw, you can very simply do the reconciliations there with a single click button. And preparation of financial statements, income, expense everything is important. You don't have to sit and worry about making those statements. Like I said, if you're using the program, you go into accounts and document generation or compliances, you'll find all of these reports under either accounts and document generation or under compliances respectively. So this is done not only for you to know, whether you have made a profit or loss, but it's also to help you learn things better about your own firm, which is where where you stand, like whether you're able to work well on which area of practice, so, whether it's traffic tickets or real estate or etc. Very similarly, you're also able to arrive at various ledgers, journals, trust disbursement journals, receipt journals, and same thing for general disbursements, general receipts, and your monthly trust and general reconciliation statements also. So this is when you're setting up both trust account and general account. So when it comes to other subtopics that we're talking about today, which is professional management, business management, time management, and personal management. We'll talk about calendar management before we go into the rest of it. So calendars can be synchronized with your Google Calendar in uLaw. Now, the point behind synchronizing the Google Calendar is that you could know all your personal time that you have allotted, personal appointments that you have can be encouraged, and you can have them entered into the uLaw program through connecting with your existing calendar, which will allow you to plan your day better, and syncing personal calendars with a daily, weekly agenda view, and all your docketed matters are also available in the calendar. You can docket from the calendar. You can also docket from the matter, both the places. And we also have monthly, weekly, daily view that will allow you to provide a better idea as to how your upcoming day or week or month is going to look like. Now, upon managing your calendar, let's say with business management, you have a good software. You decide that you want to go with a legal software. You use a program like uLaw. It's pretty efficient. You also have security with all the backups done. And every time you use a secure device or a mobile device, you make sure there's robust security on all of these mobile devices. And lastly, you can work remotely, so you don't have to literally worry about having your system in one place, yourself in the other place. With today's world, everything is available on a single click in your watch, or even a phone app. So if you take uLaw has a phone app. It has Apple Watch app, and we also have the browser-based, which you can log in from your laptop. So there are different ways you can access to all of these emails and voice messages, and it doesn't have to necessarily be that you go into the office to access them. Right? So make sure you manage your business efficiently with keeping all of these points in mind. And when it comes to personal management, we all know that, end of the day, it's about striking a balance between the professional and personal management. So make sure that the overall legal practice has to be satisfied with the area of practice that you have chosen, and also the way or the style in which you conduct the business or the practice. And we also have other things that works with growth and financial success, which you can arrive at from the financial management. So it's all interrelated, but to arrive at these numbers or these status, you need to make sure that you manage your personal as well as your professional life with, a great work-life balance. That being said, I want to walk you all through uLaw account and show you an end-to-end example. Before I go into that, do you all have any questions from whatever we discussed in the last 20 minutes? Okay, great. So right now I would like to show you all how it works in uLaw. In uLaw, okay, so right in front of me is my Playground account. So in uLaw, there are various tabs. Contacts is where you intake a client, and Matters is where you add in the dockets, invoice them, and accept payments into the trust account, and transfer money from Treasury General, and also I think a few other documents that you can generate from compliance and document generation. Now over here, you have matter events. Before I go and start adding dockets, let me start off with one end-to-end example from contacts. So under contacts, there are different ways you can add in a contact. You have add new client that you can add manually. There's document generation where you can download a client intake form, send it to them, and also that you can get it back into your email and upload the client intake form into the program. So that will allow you to bring in the client details automatically instead of manually entering them. Lastly, you also have the client portal where you enter the client's email ID followed by a secret key, and you can generate the portal link. Maybe you could just send the email to the client and a copy to yourself. And once they submit the link or submit the form, you would get a response from uLaw's team saying that you have a new client and would you like to, and it's been added into the program, please go and verify their details. So once you do that, you would probably be able to then add in all the information, rest of the information that is missing, or you probably want to do an additional information, and you can go from there and create a matter. So right now I'm just going to do a simple method of directly adding the information. So let's say add the information, provide the source of contact. These are all part of client intake service and communication that we did in one of the first few slides. You can add in notes, anything that you want to add about the client or about the file. You can just add it over here and we'll stay in here. And let me add a once you save it, you have a option where you can do a conflict check. That was the second point that we discussed under client service intake and communication, for which you're just going to click on action. Conflict check, screen all the events, matters, and dockets. It'll take about a minute. So once you have that, you know that whether there is a conflict or not, after which you can open a file. So you know there's no Melissa John. There are other similar names. If there's Melissa John, you want to go back and verify the address and other things just to make sure the other one does not have the same address or information. So if it's not there, then you go back, click on matter and open the file. Now, this is where the file management comes into picture. Let's say this was if there's any hourly rate, you get to enter it over here. Your assistant's hourly rate. Default tax rates are set as per your province. Now, upon completing the file details, right, like the name and other information, you click on save and the file number is automatically created. Now, this is the cross-indexing with an alphanumeric file number. Once you have that, you can start entering the dockets under matter events. But before you proceed with the work, you know that you have a trust account and you'd like to get some money into the trust account, like a retainer, small amount. So for which you click on compliance. You click on retainer letter, get a small retainer amount from them. Yeah, that's about it. You get a retainer letter. And this is how it looks. So you can also build your own retainer letter. So once the client has received the retainer letter and has paid you, and you have to enter the same into uLaw program. So once the retainer is here, you begin the work with matter events. Let's say you have met the client, so you have the client intake done, and order fill billable. Whatever time you took for the duration is what you're going to charge them. You're also going to speak into the mic, or you can just type it. Now you're going to raise an invoice. Complete invoice. You can choose your templates. Invoice is completed well. And you download it to send it to your client. So that's the invoice. You can bring in your own banner, your own logo, different types of invoice and style of invoice. Communicating to them clearly is very important as to, the items and the dockets and other stuff. So you have the entire invoice with all the information on the first page of you and your client. If there's anything that is pending on the retained balance will be entered in here. Once everything is done, then you can go back and start entering amounts received. Let's say you want to add in a quick disbursement. You have a disbursement that you are disbursing from the general account. Let's say that this has no profit margin. You are just going to do the, probably not do the actuals, but this has a little bit of profit margin. Let's first take this, and then we can do the actuals. So when it comes to disbursements, there are different types of disbursements, and the way you disburse are also different. You could disburse it from trust, you could disburse it from general, and if you're doing it from general, whether it includes profit or it doesn't include profit. So for example, if you are having any profit in mind, then let's say you start off with the item name, okay, and then the bottom portion, you leave it blank. You're not reporting any expense because you didn't spend for it. You just used your office printer, so you're charging them $50 plus taxes. The next disbursement is an actual disbursement. Over here, let's say you had some filing fee. Plus taxes. How did you pay for it? From your business credit card. Get the credit card details. Any transaction number. Now I want to do a disbursement only invoice. So I'm going to skip the preview and do the disbursement only invoice. Send it to my client separately. So this is the disbursement invoice. It doesn't have anything on the first page because there's no legal fee over here. The second page has some disbursements that we just entered. Okay, just going to highlight it to show you all. So you have the printing and the filing fee. Now, look at how this looks on the other side of it. I'm going to show you all how this looks on the, maybe I will take a general disbursement, So I recorded two of those. One was actuals, one was from general. You will see the general one not showing up in the general disbursement in spite of me entering it under general because the bottom portion was empty. I purposefully left the bottom portion empty, so you won't see anything on the bottom. Then it's not there in the journal, and because you're not reporting the expense. When you go back in there, let's say that you have the question mark in the center of the page. You're done with everything. You're going to transfer the money from trust to the general. So for this, you're going to just simply click on transfer the money from trust to the general. Question mark, transfer. Make this money yours because obviously you've invoiced the client, you've completed the work. You have money in trust, most importantly, and make sure the invoice number, date, everything is entered. The method of payment also, how did you transfer it from trust to the general, and transfer. Upon doing the transfer, you'll be able to download the Form 9A. If at all you forgot to download this, don't worry, you can always go into accounts and you can get it from there. You go to compliance, monthly compliance. You can download the Form 9A from here as well. If at all you forget to download as soon as you complete the transfer. Okay, and we go back in there. Let me show you a few other documents in there. So when you're in the matter, there's a compliance button over here, which will provide you all of those required ones for client ID, retainer letters. There's a whole bunch of those. And then you also have quarterly statements that you want to give them. And in case you need the non-engagement letter, it's also available readily over here and provided to them. And just to make sure that you're not getting into any of those engagement, no legal representation. Okay. Going back in there, I also want to show you that the document generation has other statements, receipts, and reports. So let's say you just received some money into your trust. You can click on retainer receipt and download. You'll get the receipt for the $500 that was sent to you by the client. Yeah. Continuing this along with the compliance, the compliance part of bookkeeping. So you have these compliance tabs in every section, starting off with contacts. There's document generation and compliance under contacts. There's conflict check, one of the most important on top of the Law Society compliance documents. There's client fee book and source of contact too. So what is source of contact? It is basically how the client reached out to you, right? Like, how do they get to know you? So you got to enter that probably on the contact area where you see there's an existing client, or maybe through family or through advertisement. There's quite a lot, so you can just do that. Make sure that you do the compliance check right there. Source of contact. Let's see, today we'll show you one contact was entered and was added to it. Yeah, that's 100%. With regards to compliances, there's more under matters. Like I said, we already saw the client ID verification. I also want to show you probably the conflict screening. So conflict screening is something that comes into picture when there are additional parties in the matter. So when you have other parties, if they are part of the file, so if there's any contact, any conflict or not, you'll be able to see that as well. And I think most of it was covered here, but what I wanted to talk about more is under accounts. There's compliance over here, but before I get into that part, let me talk about the business management and then get into this compliance. So business management, you have, there's add expense or payment, which is where you add all the office expenses. So you enter the office expenses first, and then you add in other details, and then you can put it into this. So when I talk about the office expenses, there are 2-3 types of office expenses that are recurring. So you would have maybe monthly expenses, you'd have weekly, you'll have daily. So try and input them into your system each and every time you incur them, so that there are chances that you won't miss them. And also that if you are connecting your bank with the uLaw program, it's much easier for you to just simply connect the bank and add in the expenses easily. Now, other than that, there's also an action button here, which will allow you to add in all of the transfers that you want to make from trust to the general, not trust to the general, from general to the credit card, or maybe you want to add in other expenses, but for office expenses, client expenses are also done from the matter, which is called as disbursements, which we just saw. But other than that, we also have this. And we also have other income that you can add in here. And over here, we also have capital, where you can enter in the capital under capital injection, and drawings that can be transferred from your own account. So let's say you're doing the drawings to pay yourself, like a salary. So let's say you paid self. And you could just say that you did a bank transfer from your general to your personal account and submit it. So that's called as drawings. Upon completing your other actions over here, you can also go into administrator mode to enable yourself to become an admin. Just make sure that you're going to click on enable option, and then you become an admin, so that any changes that you want to make. Now, let's say that you paid yourself 500, you click on the dollar button and you realize it wasn't 500, but it was 1,000. You look at the bank statement and realize that it was 1,000. So you can just quickly make the change by becoming an admin and also clicking on the dollar button. Okay. Now, over here, we do have a reconciliation button. Now, this is where you complete the reconciliations. Now, you have created the files, you have entered the dockets, you've done the financial management over there, where you have raised invoice, you've collected payments, you have also, done the trust transfers. You've completed the entire file there, office expenses, disbursements, everything is done. So now it's month end, the Jan month is done, you're in the Feb month. You have 25 days almost to complete the reconciliation for the previous month end, which is Jan 31st. Now, for completing the reconciliation, what do you need? You need a bank statement. You would have to also need, make sure that the balance is spotted there. You have entered that here. That is step number 1, is the date. You enter the date as 31st December or whatever it is. And then you have the bank balance entered in there. Then you clear the transactions at the bottom. And you also have the reconciliation button coming up, which is what you're going to click on and complete the reconciliation. Once you've completed the reconciliation, it's just simple for you to do the same thing with general and business credit card. So trust is mandatory that you do a reconciliation every month for the previous month end. And general is not compulsory, but it's definitely recommended to do, especially because if you're being spot audited or stuff, any kind of that, you will never know what the auditor might ask you for. So you want, and also that you want to make sure where you stand in terms of financial management. So how your firm is doing extra. So those things can be understood and analyzed only if you are doing your general monthly reconciliations. So obviously you're able to know where you stand. So that is about the reconciliation part. Now you know that for a fact. Once you're done with all of these, you can get into the compliance tab and do your monthly compliance. Other documents such as ledgers and journals, fee book, expense book, all of this is for your own well-being, also for firms, how you could understand about where you are good at, which area of practice you're better at. You could do multiple area of practices, but if you look at your fee book, you know where you have collected more fee, where you have made more expenses, where you have incurred more of disbursements. A lot of them, right? So that is what it is. And other than that, I'd like to show a few of ledgers and journals from today's examples. So let's look at the client's trust ledger. Ledgers are nothing but, they are both activities that you get to see, receipts and disbursements for each of the clients that you're working on. So today I brought in 500 into the trust as a retainer and dispersed them into the general account or transfer them into the general account, which is what you're currently seeing here. And journals are just a single type of activity. It's not both receipts and disbursements, but it shows one of the activity each time. So you first have disbursement or receipt for trust, and then same thing for general, right? So this is very common when it comes to the law society compliances, when it comes to bookkeeping too, because you know that there are two types of ledgers, there are 4 types of journals, and what can go under it is nothing but your daily recordings or daily activities that you've recorded in there. Now, it shouldn't take too much time if you're doing it religiously on a daily basis. If you don't have a transaction on a daily basis, of course, when and there you have a transaction, try and add them so that you'll be more compliant with law society and you'll always be audit ready. You'll also see a very seamless accounting that way, helpful for you. Because those days you had to do things manually or you had to use a spreadsheet software, or you probably used a common accounting or a general accounting software, but now you have a legal accounting software which does most of the work, where you only do an input of adding clients or their dockets, raising invoices, adding some disbursements, office expenses. But then at the back end, all these ledgers and journals and other reconciliation reports, everything is done by the program itself. But I mean, you'll have to do the reconciliation, but the report is generated by the program. But other documents that we were talking about, especially the 4 journals, 2 ledgers, fee book, expense book, Form 9A, I can keep going on. There are tons of reports that uLaw generates, and they're handy, they're pretty helpful. They're also compliant with law society. All of these form part of your accounting system. So every transaction that you have received, you just need to make sure that you have added in the receipts, the disbursements, for every client especially. You have to make sure that you've added into the respective file with the balances, and you also get to see the expenses and fee and other things under the general ledger. So you have client's trust ledger and you have client's general ledger too. That will show you both, right? as you see over here, each ledger also has a running balance. So when you have a receipt and a disbursement added in there, you have to also, or you'll automatically see the balance too, right? So you have when it comes to general ledger, you'll see additionally maybe a HST or a GST, basically the taxes portion too, because general ledger has fee and the fee has taxes, and that would also be seen under the accounts over there. Now, when it comes to ledger, it's both, as you see here in the example, it's both receipts and disbursements, which means the incoming and outgoing, both under one particular ledger, right? Trust and general, respectively. But when you take journal, each type of activity has its own journal, right? Like a receipt journal and a disbursement journal. Again, you have a receipt journal for general and a disbursement journal for general. So journals also record the method of payment, purpose, etc. But the additional first aspect of having journal is you get to drill down into more details, because they are single type of activity under each of those records, right? And what is the reconciliation for trust mean, which we already discussed, but recording of these transactions are highly important so that you don't make any errors, and also any outstanding checks and deposits and bank errors, you have to ensure that you have them handy. You make a note of them on time from time to time, and you enter them in there, right? And last but not the least are other documents, which also includes fee book, Form 9A, expense book, deposit slips. These are also asked by Law Society, but at the same time, they are highly important for your own client records too. Over here, you also have to make sure that you manage all of this. So, with all the double entry bookkeeping system, you have seamless accounting, and, you enter things under matter, you manage the matter, but at the same time, they also show up on the accounting, right? So you have both of them, and recording the data when and there, when it happens, which is what is going to make the reconciliation process more simple. Make sure you are able to maintain the ledgers and journals, and you keep track of accounting data and translate them into the records for your further use. Other than that, you also have the other benefits of using a legal accounting software, because you're able to record events as and when they happen, and you're able to generate documents that you need. Ease of use, definitely. You're able to do better analysis. Accountability is there, and compliance is also available, because Law Society is pretty keen on compliance part. So you want to make sure that you are compliant from day one. So if you have to be compliant from day one, you need to make sure that you add in all of those information that we were talking about in the last few minutes, or a little more than an hour. Make sure that you are able to open your account from day one. You don't handle cash. You make sure to get things into your bank account, so you have your bank records at least, and then you have legal accounting software where you start adding events, record events as and when they happen, and you have the financial records and the bank records as close as possible matching for you to do the reconciliation easily. So end of the day, you're compliant with Law Society at least from the financial perspective. Client intake service and communication, as we spoke earlier, is pretty simple, but you need to make sure that you're having them also very handy. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that there are no questions so far. Has everyone probably heard me. Catherine, I don't have too much to go over. I think I've gotten through the examples. I'm going to quickly recap. But before I recap, I want to make sure if there are any questions from your students or yourself, have I missed out anything? You want me to go over anything again? Please feel free to use the chat window, all of you. I want to start taking questions, and I'm going to simultaneously go over or recap what we did today. So we kind of covered two topics. One was everything practice management, and another one is law society bookkeeping compliances. About everything practice management, we spoke about adding new contacts or clients, potential clients, making sure how you can add them, what are the things to keep in mind right from the time you create a client intake form to the time you do a conflict check and source of contact under compliances to the time you open a file, which is where you do a file management. And we also have other matter management, which is under matters, where you have the docketing and invoicing and disbursements and other things that forms part of it. There's also document management, where we have powered with Google and OneDrive. So you can use the documents through cloud to connect to one of your cloud servers and add in the documents over there for every matter. So now if I open the document for this matter, it will take me into the matter and add in all the documents into it and make sure it's all in one place. And, there are also code forms under the matters. So if at all you're doing a legal practice in one of these areas, you can use the code forms. It will be helpful for you to add in all of these information handy. And when you're invoicing, make sure you invoice, you pre-bill, complete it, and then you can transfer the money from trust to the general, or you can open the file and get the money into the general account too. And then when you go into accounts, you can do your office expenses over here. There's add expense or payment. You can manually do it, or you can bring in to the account through Bank Connect. And you can also connect to it. Okay, mine is currently not connected, but you can use the Bank Connect to connect the bank statement, and you can add it automatically. And we also spoke about how you could do bank transfers from Action, paying your bank credit cards. And you could use the administrator option to make any edit function. You need to make sure you're on admin. And there are the compliance documents and reconciliations over here. You can print check, you can synchronize your calendar, you can sync it from here. You can also add dockets from calendar that as we discussed earlier. And we also have time dockets that you can add in over here, which can directly go into the client's file. There's also Scratchpad, where you can add in all the dockets when you're working on it. And you can work on multiple files at a time. So that's more important. Let's say on one file, you're working on drafting, another file you're working on maybe a court hearing, and then another file you're working on client intake. So you do all of them at the same time, but you want to add into the different files. You can just simply click on add new event and add matter. Add one to one of the clients, add one to the other client. So it can keep going on like that. And once you're done, you can just clear all the dockets for daily dockets, and then it will go on to a clear slate, but those dockets would have been added into the respective matters. Right? So you also have the facility of Scratchpad here under the calendar, which can be put to good use. Other than calendar, there's analytics, which is used for your own insights. So please make best use of whatever you need to put into use. Maybe you want to see the revenue insights, expense, you want to see profit and loss for a period, you want to see maybe expense chart by category, so you know how much you spent today on renting, on fee paid to client. There's so much that you can do under one of them, whether it's a profit or loss, what was the revenue today, and what was the expense overall today, and you can do all of them together. With keeping in mind all of those details are available with Expand and get the details from here. So far, I think I was able to quickly recap a few of them that we discussed today. Catherine, I see there are no questions on your online class as well, and the students who have joined here. But I'd like to stay here for another 15 minutes to see if any of you have any questions, or you want me to walk you through any examples that you've given in your class, anything, that you want me to go over again. Please let me know. I'll be more than happy, or if you're all good, I'm happy to wind up the session too. Please do let me know. Also, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be from today's session. It could be anything regards to uLaw. You have anything common to know from, how to operate a matter, or, any specific questions. Yesterday, I think there were a few questions. Anything that you have from today's class? I see nothing. Good to go. Okay. Thank you so much, Catherine, and all of you for joining in today's session. I hope it was useful. Any questions at any time, do reach out to us on support@uLawPractice.com. I'm going to enter the details here. And please do follow us on our Instagram handle. It's uLawPractice. You would see a lot of helpful videos put out there, which will be really helpful for you to learn not just what uLaw does, but also to understand what you need to do in terms of being compliant with Law Society. So that is definitely going to be helpful. So do follow us on our Instagram handle. And any questions? Students would like to see client intake again. Oh yeah, sure. So like I said, client intake happens from contacts tab. We are right now in the contacts tab. Now there are 3 different ways you could do a client intake in uLaw. Number 1, pretty old school method, but I really like this. Pretty simple. Add new client, and you can add in the information manually yourself, right? And you can add in all the information such as source of contact, the address, and other information, and save it. Once you save it, you can do a conflict check by simply clicking on action and do the conflict check before you open a file. Once you open a file, then you would go on to creating a matter, right? Before you do that, you also want to make sure that I want to show you the other way you could do it is click on document generation, client intake. You can also download a form, send it to your client on the email, ask them to fill it out, send it back to you, right? Once they send it back to you, you can just click on import contact, click on upload client intake form, and you should be able to see the contact here automatically. So you're not manually entering anything like I did for Kevin. Now the third way you do it is click on client portal, enter the client's email ID, enter the secret key. Now this secret key is what you are giving under settings, under contacts. You have agreed to use uLaw client portal, and you've given a secret key or provided a secret key, which is common for all the clients and which is what you're using in here. Once you go under contacts and You click on Client Portal, you enter the client's email ID, secret key, email client and yourself, and you should be good with that. All right. Over here now with Kevin Gill, I just downloaded a conflict check. There's nothing similar to Kevin Gill. So there's nothing exactly matching to Kevin Gill. There are similar sounding names and conflicts which you can go through. And then you click on Matter, you would arrive at the Matter page. So always start with the contact, add new client, do the conflict check, click on Action, save it, do the Matter, and then you click on Matter title. We have a chart available for debits and credits. Is it something in common? I'm not sure because I don't think we have. We have something called chart of accounts where you can see all of those assets and liabilities, capital, etc. Or you can go to document generation and there's something called, I think, trial balance where you can see all the debits and the credits. But there is nothing in specific for debits and credits. If you're looking at like, like a report or something. No, I don't think so. I think the question has to be more specific. That was what he wanted to see. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. So I think with the client intake part, it happens in the contact using the client portal or add new client or a client intake form. Then you complete the conflict check, open the matter. Once you open the matter, you're going to give whatever is the title for the issue, traffic ticket or real estate file or whatever, and other details in relation to it. And then you go ahead with docketing and the rest of it goes from there. Is that clear, or do you want anything more with that part? Perfect. Thank you so much, Catherine, and your students too for joining in. I hope it was helpful. Like I said, your questions can extend beyond the session. So you're welcome to send us an email on uLaw, support at the uLawPractice.com. Also follow us on Instagram and to get any questions that you have cleared on there. The Instagram handle is uLawPractice. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. And Catherine, I will be sharing the recording after the class today. Have a wonderful weekend, all of you, and I look forward to probably catching up with all of you. Maybe once you're out of school and you want to start your own practice, reach out to uLaw. You do get free trial. Do let us know you're from Durham College or took us training with us. We will have some idea about your own, setting up your account and stuff. Wish you all the very best, and thank you so much once again. Yes, I will send the recording from yesterday's session too. There was, I think I recorded only half the session last time, Catherine. I will make sure to send that as well. Thank you, all of you. Have a wonderful weekend.